Hello students, today I am going to continue with the life history of Herdmania, and this is the part 6 which we are doing, and it is continued from the previous lecture. In the previous lecture I had done the digestive system, and now we are going to do the digestive glands associated with the system. So let's begin. Here are the digestive glands which are associated with the stomach, with the whole digestive system. One is liver and the other is pyloric gland. Now these glands, they are situated around the stomach. Actually, the pyloric gland is situated in the walls of the stomach, and the liver is placed surrounding the stomach. This you've already seen. There are two lobes. One left one is larger and the right one is smaller. So here we are going to do the detailed histological structure of both the glands. Now when you see a pyloric gland, like you can see the diagram over here, it is a transverse section of the stomach of Herdmania showing tubules of pyloric gland. Here there are the tubules of pyloric gland. On the top, on the outer surface, these are the ampullae of pyloric gland. This is a transverse section of stomach, as I have already told you, and this is the outer wall, and this is towards the lumen. This will be the lumen of the stomach. So, and the pyloric gland, as you can see, it is placed, the ampullae are placed on the outer surface of the wall, and the tubules of pyloric gland, they are placed towards the lumen, because they have to open into the lumen of the stomach. The pyloric gland is a large and highly branched structure with its branches or tubules ramifying within the walls of stomach. And a little part of pyloric gland, it extends into the intestine also. The tubules terminate in elongated ampullae which extend up to the inner epithelial lining of the gut. These are most abundant in the last part of the stomach and first part of intestine. Numerous ducts arise from these tubules and join together to open into the middle part of the proximal limb of intestine by a single small aperture. As you can see, all these duct tubules, there is a branch of all these tubules, and they all end up in one big tubule which opens in the proximal part of the intestine. The tubules are lined by a single layer of small epithelial cells. They are ampullae by large glandular polygonal cells, and their ducts by large cylindrical cells. The function of the pyloric gland is not well understood, but according to Lacaze-Duthiers, it combines the functions of an excretory organ and pancreas. The next gland is the liver, and here the anatomical structure is not given because it was done before in the digestive system, and this liver is present on both sides of the stomach. On the left side is the larger lobe, and on the right side is the smaller lobe. The large lobe is bilobed and chocolate colored glandular structure lying against the stomach and opening into it by several short liver ducts. Its right lobe is roughly quadrangular, smaller in size. It is about 1/3 the size of the left lobe and extends across the mid-ventral line of the branchial sac towards its right side. The larger and roughly rectangular left lobe is closely attached to and covers the wall of the stomach on the left side of the branchial sac. Histologically, the liver consists of a mass of numerous branching ceca. Here these are all, you can see the branching ceca over here. These are the branching ceca, and one of the cecum is shown in transverse section, and it is magnified. Actually it is magnified and shown over here. The ceca are arranged in small radial groups and are embedded in a matrix of connective tissue containing numerous blood sinuses. This is the matrix and these are the blood sinuses. You can see this is the connective tissue between the all the ampullae, between all the ceca, and these are the blood sinuses. Blood sinuses, the pools, there are spaces in which blood is filled, and these are known as blood sinuses. The ductules of the ceca of each radial group converge in the center to form a common main duct for the group. In all, there are about a dozen of such main liver ducts which open into the stomach. As opposed to this pyloric gland, there was only one duct which is opening in the proximal part of the intestine. In the liver, there are a dozen ducts, main ducts, which are formed ultimately after the combining of all the small ducts in the gland. Each cecum has a single layered wall of tall glandular cells. You can see these are tall glandular cells, each containing a basal nucleus and several small vacuoles which are filled with dark yellow and refractive hepatic secretion. At its free apical end and projecting into the cavity of cecum, each cell bears a prominent process formed by the accumulation of hepatic secretion. Inside here you can see the processes of liver cells. The wall of the hepatic duct is formed of shorter ciliated cells and which are devoid of vacuoles. So this is all about the histology of the liver. Next we come to the food, feeding and digestion. Now here it is what is the food of the animal. The food of Herdmania comprises microscopic marine animals and plants like algae, diatoms, infusorians, crustaceans, etc. This you already know, and it enters the body with the in current water which is entering from the branchial siphon. So let's come to the mode of feeding. The food, feeding and digestion, it is this topic is divided into three main parts. The first is the mode of feeding. Normally Herdmania keeps its branchial and atrial apertures wide open, and a strong and steady current of outside water is maintained through the body by the cilia of the branchial wall. The water enters by the branchial aperture, and after passing through the branchial siphon, prebranchial zone, branchial sac, stigmata, atrial cavity, cloaca and atrial siphon, it escapes out by the atrial aperture. Sometimes to remove some large foreign particle from the water current or for other reasons, one of the siphons is closed and the water is ejected out from the other in a jet with a strong force created by the muscle bands of this siphon or of the whole body. The above mentioned water current is vital for the well-being of the sessile animal. It brings in food particles and oxygen and takes out carbon dioxide and other refuge. Large sized food particles are prevented from entering into the pharynx by the sieve of branchial tentacles. Food catching takes place in the branchial sac. According to an older view of Wiley and Herdman, the food particles fall down to the mid-ventral line of the sac. Here the particles become entangled in the mucus secreted by the glandular cells of the endostyle. Thus a continuous food cord of mucus is formed, and this passes forwards in the endostylar groove. At anterior end of the groove, this cord divides into two threads, each passing into the peripharyngeal groove of its side. In the mid dorsal line, the two threads reunite to form the cord, which then passes back in the tube formed by the languids of the dorsal lamina and ultimately into the esophagus through esophageal opening. So this was the mode of feeding. Now we come to digestion and absorption. Digestion takes place in the stomach. The digestive enzymes are mainly contained in the yellowish brown hepatic secretion, which is brought from the liver into the stomach by obviously the hepatic ducts. The function of pyloric gland is still obscure, but probably it is pancreatic in nature. The exact nature of digestive enzyme is not yet known. In some ascidians, the hepatic secretion has been shown to contain lipolytic, proteolytic and amylolytic ferments. This secretion is probably similar to the vertebrate bile, except for the absence of normal bile salts and cholesterol in it. In the hepatic secretion of tithium, Beryl has also claimed the presence of invertase, maltase and lactase in small quantities. After this process of digestion, there is absorption taking place in the body. The absorption of digested food takes place mainly in the middle part of intestine. The undigested residue or excreta is passed into the cloaca through the anus by the help of the cilia of rectal wall. The excreta is in the form of a coiled string. From the cloaca, these strings are taken out by the outgoing current of water. So this way the digestion and absorption of the food takes place, and along with absorption, after absorption, the food is either used up by the body, and if there is an ample quantity, if there is more quantity than needed by the body, then it is stored. So now we come to the storage of food. Excess, which is not needed by the body, excess food absorbed in the intestine is stored in the form of starch granules having concentric striations. You know the structure of starch granules. In Herdmania, these granules are abundantly found in the walls of esophagus, stomach and liver. In some ascidians, like Cyona, which lack a liver, the excess food is stored in the form of glycogen. So this finishes the food feeding and digestion. Comes the respiratory system, and it is a very simple system, and there are no special organs formed for this process for respiration. It takes place mainly by the general body surface. In Herdmania, the branchial sac is the main respiratory organ, and the test serves as an accessory respiratory organ. Now, why the branchial sac is acting like the main respiratory organ? Because all the water supply is passing through the branchial sac. The folds of the inner epithelial lining of branchial sac enormously increase the respiratory surface, which is washed by the water current. As already mentioned, the branchial wall is very richly supplied by longitudinal, transverse, interstigmatic and intrastigmatic vessels and numerous blood sinuses, all found in its connective tissue layer. The walls of all these blood vessels are very thin and allow an easy exchange of gases between the blood and the water. If traces of oxygen escape absorption by the branchial wall, These are absorbed by the blood vessels of trabeculae in the atrial cavity. The test helps in respiration by means of its vascular ampullae, which are situated close to its external surface. The outer wall of these ampullae is thin and made up to pigment containing squamous epithelial cells. Made up of pigment containing squamous epithelial cells. Thus, an easy exchange of gases takes place here between the blood of the ampullae and the outside water. This is all about respiratory system, and for now I have done two systems, the digestive glands and the respiratory system. In the next chapter we will continue with the nervous system, excretion, neural complex. So for the next lecture I will be doing all these topics.